Hey, how's it going all? Just want to do a quick video on a couple thoughts that I've had while watching some of the Hebrew Israelite leaders' videos, in particular a channel called Awaken Israel, and Zabak is the leader of that group. And this is a guy, most of the leaders are like ball earthers, and so this one in particular, he pushes, just follow the law, to the quote best of your abilities and all that kind of stuff. And so the way I see what's happening just with leadership on the world stage right now is that if there were any avenue for us to like interact vertically, like let's say all of us are down here at the bottom and like these leaders represent, ways to get to the quote unquote top, the top structures, the power structures, the top financial structures and all that kind of stuff, or just simply access to a lot of people. Influential people and all that kind of stuff. And so let's say that people like Zabak and other leaders in the Hebrew movement, or even like mainstream Christian pastors, and then now in the flat earth, people like, Jeranism, Bob, and, Oakley's growing his channel, people like that who have access to like, a wide audience, influence other people, maybe not necessarily financial power, but influence and reach, and can get a message out and all that kind of stuff, is that to me, all those sort of avenues, again, I'm not saying every single one are evil who have like a large following, but it makes sense. And it's becoming more and more clear that those structures are in place to continue to enslave people, because that's really what a system would need if the mark of the beast is to happen, and I believe it will happen relatively soon if it does. The whole vibe needs to be enslavement, and there can't be any quote unquote gaps, because in my opinion, if truth got up, quote up far enough and with a broad enough reach, people could start potentially changing things, and like maybe not necessarily reversing course of the mark of the beast, but it could alter its ability to be implemented, or evil to like, be successful, and flourish, if there were actually genuine structures in place where people could, distribute truth to a broad group, like, for example, the truth of flat earth. And so it doesn't surprise me now that, the quote unquote Hebrew leaders, the ones with like 10, 15, 20, 30,000 followers on YouTube, have to be ball earthers, because to me, if they were flat earthers and that truth got out quickly, to me, that would, if they're genuine people who are receiving flat earth, would destabilize the world, and so those people need to be in place to continue to enslave. And then so they need something to come and sort of masquerade. They still need to push something to gain influence over a large group of people. And the Hebrews are just using the law. And so Zabak will always push, do the law to the best of your ability, blah, blah, blah. We got to come together and all this kind of stuff. The reality is, you cannot keep the law in the world that we live in now. You can't. There's no way. You have to lie just to stay alive here. And there's just Reddit post after Reddit post. It's just obvious for anybody, if we live in a system that's designed to enslave this much on this level, how can a person function obeying the law? It doesn't make sense. It's like completely contrary to the way the entire direction of society is going worldwide, according to the mark of the beast, if it's true. The law cannot be withheld, even on the micro level, because corporations would be the main vessels to implement this kind of thing, corporations and government. So you'd have to lie everywhere, and so lie to get a job, lie to keep a job, lie to interact with the government, lie to date, courtship, all that. You have to lie everywhere. And so that's just one of the laws. Apparently there's like 613 laws. It's just one of them, and a very, very important one. But you can't even keep that one. So how are you supposed to love God, worship God, not steal, all that kind of stuff? Our whole stock market's a casino. It's like you're fundamentally kind of stealing from everybody all over the place. and we don't know, people obviously who are doing it, just investing. It's just a big casino, really our whole financial system worldwide. And so you can't keep the law. And so I'm not saying don't try or whatever, but a real leader who's being honest, in my opinion, speaking the words of God, which Zabak clearly is not because he's a ball earther. But that doesn't mean everything he says is false. But, they wouldn't say that. They would say that really you can't really keep the law. We can't be here if the law is serious to any God who wants us to keep it. And so this to me is the cry for a growing number of people. And certainly you can't take care of the poor because everybody's poor. And so it's getting ridiculous, and it's been ridiculous for a long time. But so that to me is consistent actually with what I've been criticizing the flat earth community leaders like Owen Benjamin, Jeranism, and Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, is that there's some truth in what they're saying, like the flat earth, and there's some truth in what Zabak and Tahar at GMS are saying, but they're still continuing to push enslavement, and so the GMS, they don't push the law as much because they're a bunch of reprobates, the leaders. They'll just push, do as many videos as you can, get out on the streets, break down as many verses as you can. So they're enslaved to like homework, basically. They give their minions, their underlings, as much work to do. And so they're enslaving them with those sort of burdens. What I basically say is like prophetic homework. And then Zabak gives people the law, which is like 613 laws, which, like I said, you cannot keep like continuously in any meaningful way. And even the fringes, which the Hebrews wear, I don't want to wear those. I saw Dave Murphy wearing it in one of his street preaching sessions, but I don't want to wear the fringes because most of the people who wear them are ball earthers. So I don't want anybody to look at me on the street and be associated with that. So to me, they've made that law unattractive in the very least for people to try and follow. But even if that wasn't the case, like it's insane. You cannot. And so there's enslavement happening even in the quote unquote truth side on the Hebrew side. And then in the flat earth, it's just obvious now. I mean, Owen Benjamin talking about enjoying being a quote unquote field Negro when he's not actually. I mean, I don't know how much money he has or his net worth, but he's obviously not poor. Just enjoy being, he's just claiming that he's enjoying being a field Negro, and we should like be just as happy as he is being one, and just do what you can to share the gospel and all that kind of stuff. So it's just corporatism, it's just again commoditizing truth and packaging it to ensure that the people beneath, quote unquote, beneath them are there to continue to prop them up, and so that's really happening everywhere, and I think this to me is why the system fundamentally is unstable, is that there's a lot of leverage in the financial system, like with derivatives, and I've done videos on that, but there's just a lot of leverage amongst people, and just everybody is constantly leveraging others, whether it's on a more massive scale like that or on a smaller scale. It's just everywhere. And so once people at the bottom start realizing, like us, and people who are, poor and really in destitute conditions, start realizing that we're all upholding a system that is filled with satanic leverage and just excessive amounts of greed, the whole system has to crumble. It's like, what's the point? We just realize, all of us, and I think it's not just me, it's a lot of people, are realizing that we're all laboring to maintain a satanic hierarchy that is only designed to enslave us by people who are even quote unquote truthers. And so Jeranism, who claims to be like a truther and a flat earther, a normal person who's a flat earther, who doesn't have any other pre-programming to be evil, just a normal person, would now recognize God exists first and foremost. Anybody who says they're like a quote unquote atheist flat earther, to me, is like an actor, like someone like Sean G or something like that. They're just flip-flopping, and I call them market makers. They're just there to like set up live streams and have emotional conversations and stuff. But aside from those people, any normal person who's a flat earther will know now God exists. A spiritual, a non-human created the earth. It's not a statistical event. And then so one would then start shopping for which God, or start in the very least eliminating gods that don't make sense, or support ball earth or something extreme like that. But for Jeranism, for example, to say a blasphemous statement about Jesus, that Christianity or Jesus can suck his DICK, it's like, that's someone to me that obviously is programmed to say that, because no one would say that. No logical person would say that. There's nothing in the Bible itself, or certainly what Jesus said, that would warrant a statement like that. Yes, people have taken the Bible and done incredibly wicked things with it, and that's prophesied actually in the Bible that will be the case. And in my opinion, the Bible puts verses in there that bait people into that, because like Jesus even says when he teaches us to pray, he tells us to ask God, don't lead us into temptation. People have taken the Bible and taken the verses about the health and wealth stuff and made that into an industry that's blooming. They've made it into like little cults. They've used it to manipulate people and do a whole bunch of different things and create offshoot religions and all that kind of stuff. And so it's all there, and the Bible puts hooks in there on purpose to do that, because again, God sends a delusion. He is the author of good and evil. And so, but there's nothing Jesus himself has done or said in the Bible that would warrant a statement like that. And so it's becoming more and more obvious every day, every video that I see, that these leaders are just there in place to transfer enslavement from just one form to another. So the Israelites, though they're bringing some truth, the Israelite leadership, they're obviously not just going to be able to tell everybody lies, and get 50,000 subs. They have to bring some truth, which I believe they are. But if they want to continue this system, which, like I said, is designed only to enslave the masses, as many gullible people as it can, it has to still, find some other way to enslave them with. So it's not the plantation. So they moved some. There are probably, I'm sure, people still everywhere around the world in America still on plantations being enslaved. We know that. That's a very, very high probability that's the case still in large numbers. But a large group have possibly moved off the plantation, but now they need another form of enslavement. And so the leaders of the Hebrews, in particular Awaken Israel, will enslave with the law and place a burden upon people to just suck it up, continue to be a slave in the corporate world, and which automatically forces you to disregard all the laws. And then here's the law on top of that, and just do the best you can. Nowhere in the Bible does it say do the best you can. Jesus says it's better to cut your arm off than to use your arm to sin. So that's the way God wants it to be with respect to his word. And again, I'm not recommending anybody go and cut their arm off, but that's what Jesus says. There is no do the best you can. In my opinion, the logical thing for God's children to do, the ones closest to God, would say, you want us to keep the law and we would like to, but we can't. We can't even do a few of them once in a while. And so these people are there to enslave, further. And so so they're just actors to me. I'm not giving them a pass and saying that they can just get away with saying whatever they want. But to me, only somebody who's an actor would do that. The Bible is obviously a flat earth book, so Zabak knows that the earth is flat. He's there in place to keep this system turning and continue the enslavement, but do it in a very, very subtle way. And Jeranism and deep inside the rabbit hole, they're not even hiding it anymore. These people are Satanists. They're antichrist, overtly. And so that it's becoming very, very obvious that their duty is to continue the enslavement, but on the flat earth side. And so really, there's no quote unquote pathway to the top, to God ultimately, through these large groups, and through Globebusters or Jeranism Raw, whatever. I think Owen Benjamin has a podcast. All these Hebrew leaders, they're out of their mind. They're just trying to siphon as much money in super chats as possible, and because they're doing things that are just not logical, and that do not make any sense, that a normal person would not say. And so, to me, if a person is just saying things that don't make any sense over and over again, God is using them. They're just an actor, they're just fulfilling their role to say certain things and all that kind of stuff. So, Owen Benjamin making incredibly insensitive statements about the slavery of the so-called African American people, while being a flat earther and not calling out any of the other evil that's going on currently, and then the evil that would have been required to create a deception like the ball earth, proof that he's an actor. And then Jeranism blaspheming, Jesus, asking Jesus to give him a blowjob, is just blatantly obvious that he's Antichrist. And so it doesn't make sense that a person, even if Jesus was somehow a bad person or whatever, or they had some reason to hate Christianity for reasons different than most of us would hate it, no one would make a statement like that, and that just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, even just being cautious, about the words that a person uses. And why doesn't he say that about, people of all the different religions? There's people who are evil in all buckets throughout the world. And then if he hates a religion or a leader for being that sort of divisive, what's going on with central banking? Why don't we hear deep inside the rabbit hole who's Jewish? The Bible calls the synagogue of Satan, for people who remain in that kind of thinking that the mainstream Jewish people do. Why isn't he speaking openly about the fractional reserve banking, and central banking and the enslavement that it's doing wonderfully well and is mainstream news by everybody, really? Even the mainstream corporate media is talking about how this whole financial experiment is completely unstable and designed to only benefit a few. Where's that? Why isn't he telling central bankers to come and suck his D? Where's that comment and all that kind of stuff? So there's a reason for it, is that they're just actors, and so God will deal with them, for sure. And it's they don't care, really, is what I'm saying. Like, a person who is that stupid and would make such a blasphemous statement has no value for the afterlife or anything like that. So they're just literally in place to constipate the truth and keep the populace at bay, and try and get everybody to just be happy slaves, when the truth about flat earth is all about freedom, interacting with God directly. The truth about what the Hebrews are supposed to be bringing out to their people, that they are the chosen people, that's supposed to be about freedom and knowing that God does actually care about them, even though there is a punishment that is taking place. And then, America is the place where the deliverance and then the destruction will happen. That should also be a form of freedom, to know that it will, the enslavement will not continue forever. God will hear the cries of people who ignore these leaders and say, God, we cannot operate under your word here in this place. We cannot. It's corporations are evil. Our leadership is evil, even though they're masquerading around as being loving and truthful. The church is completely sold out. We have Gregory Mannarino, who's an admitted Freemason, who's calling out way more of the evil than all the Catholic Church and Christian Church worldwide. And we even have atheists, people who I don't think come from a religious background, World Alternative Media, people like Jeff Berwick and all these other people. They're calling out, all the financial evil in the world, and they don't come with a religious angle really at all. So they're running laps around the church as well, and all that kind of stuff. So we don't hear a peep from any of the major religions, about financial stuff. But so everybody will talk about everything, but just how satanic, the central bankers are, and how this system is completely backwards, and God is nowhere to be found. You cannot talk about God in a meaningful way, even amongst the quote-unquote truthers. And some of the truthers, like Jeranism, will outright blaspheme, the God of the Bible, and be proud about it. And so, to me, if this is just like a weird time period and we're just going through some strange stuff, that's possible. But I think it's just becoming more and more unlikely, because if a comment like that irritates somebody like me, who's like a sinner, what would God think? And Jeranism is like applauded as somehow like a nice guy or something like that. This is Satan. This is the Antichrist. In one of its many, many forms. And Zabak and all these Baal earthers on the Hebrew side, that's Antichrist. That goes against the Bible. And so they have a different agenda than just disseminating the truth of the Bible, if they're Baal earthers. And so we have leadership everywhere, even in the truth community, that is continuing to want us enslaved. And being enslaved is one thing, but being enslaved to the point where we're not allowed to even talk about God or do anything that pleases God is another thing. And one would think, again, if the God of the Bible is serious about his word and he actually exists and he actually cares, that he's being squeezed out really from every single corner of flat earth, one would think that would not go on forever. Hope everyone's doing well. Bye.